Welcome back. I'm so glad that you are here. I am here to talk to you about my balloon pricing formula. This is by far the most biggest thing that everybody struggles with, is how much should I charge for any given job? I see it all the time in every group that I'm in, and the answers vary so wildly, and there's so much unknown in the question that makes the answers often difficult to even be helpful. So it's hidden back here. I want to make this really easy with a formula. This is going to be a follow-up video to the one that I made previously. I have made just a couple of tweaks to the formula based on some of the questions that I got and some frequent use. I've come up with a couple of things that work a little bit better, and I also have some answers to some of the most commonly asked questions that I get. So we're gonna jump back into this, and I'm gonna explain everything. You can take this formula, write it down, and use it on your own. If you want though, I also have turned this formula into a calculator that does the work for you. All you have to do is plug in your numbers, your cost, those sorts of things, and it will automatically give you your total quote for your customer, in addition to your net profit, your profit margin, and if you want to do any discounts, it'll calculate that for you as well. So if you just want it all to be done for you, go to my link in my bio, and there you can go to my balloon job cost calculator and get it for yourself. But I still want you to watch this video so that you can understand things. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, one more ado. If you haven't already, go find me on Facebook. I am, every time that I post here, that's where I update, that's where you'll see an announcement that there's a new post, a new tutorial, something like this that's up. It's also where I post deals and discounts on things that I find that we are using constantly in our balloon business, so that our total amount of profit can be higher, which is always the goal, right? So anyway, find me over there. I will also link that in this description. Okay, that was my last ado. Let's do this. So one of the biggest problems that I see with being in a Facebook group and just posting an inspo pic that a client has sent to you and saying how much should I charge this client? There are so many troublesome things about that. One, we don't know, the audience doesn't know what your level of work is. You could be a beginner, you could be advanced, and it's hard to know. So how much should I charge for it is a different question than how much would you charge for it? And it's gonna be a different answer. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that you're asking people that live in all sorts of places and all sorts of markets, and who knows if they're in a really high paying or really low paying. And so, you see people kind of bicker back and forth about oh, it's worth this, it's worth that. Well, everybody has their own area. So that makes it really hard too. So this is going to take all of that into account. I do have some notes here. If you see me looking down, it's because I just I don't trust my head to have everything that's in my head come out of my mouth. So to make this easier, I've got it broken down into 6 categories, and I promise it's not going to be that bad. It sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad. The first one, let me see if I can Vanna White move this down so that we can keep it a mystery. The first one is going to be seen and non-reusable items. The most obvious of that is balloons, right? I know there are people throwing their balloons in their dryer. I am not doing that. I am not reusing my balloons on a regular basis, so I include balloons in that. Also, custom props is one that usually comes into this category. Foils, things like that. Things that are part of the design, the pretty, the visual, but that you're not using again for a different customer. So those things, you're going to charge 100% of those costs to the customer. I'm going to insert here a very commonly asked question that I have gotten is, what if you don't use the whole bag of balloons? And I do have another video going over that in a little bit more depth, and I'm just going to keep it short here and say, if it is a color that you use frequently, that you would stock if you are somebody who stocks balloons. For me, that's basically red, white, black, blue, maybe gold. If it's a color that you use frequently, then break down the cost per balloon and you can charge that to your customer. That is fair. The theme of all of this is being fair. You want to be fair to yourself and charge your worth, but you also want to be fair to your customer. If you screw over your customer and overcharge on a regular basis, you're only going to get away with that a couple of times, and then you're not going to be in business long. So all along this, be fair. Anyway, so if you use it frequently, that's fair. You can charge the amount. But if it's not something that you use frequently, you're just buying it because this particular customer wanted wanted this sort of like unique color or something like that, then you can charge the full cost, because you can buy it in the lowest quantity that's available. Let's say you only need 10 of this like random color balloon, but you can only buy it in bags of 50 or 100. So buy it in the bag of 50, buy it in the smallest quantity that you have, even though, or that you can, even though you only need 10. But at this point, the cost of buying 10 balloons is the cost of buying 50 balloons. You cannot get it. You cannot buy per balloon or buy only 10. And so it is fair and it is reasonable to charge the customer the amount that you had to pay in order to get that special color or that special print or whatever that they wanted. And that goes for foil balloons and that sort of thing. So I think that that is a reasonable way to break it down. Okay, let's move on. So next, after that, we have our second category, which is unseen and non-reusable. So, oh no, I don't know, I have to hold it here. So unseen and non-reusable is going to be things, all the other stuff that you have to use to bring your project together. So 260s, clamps, zip ties, rubber bands, glue dots, tape. I mean, the list goes on, right? There is a lot of stuff. And this is one of the places where people don't understand the expense or the cost of balloons, because they just see the balloons and they see an Amazon kit for 20 bucks and they have like, there's just, you know, part of this, we have to educate our clients. But there's a lot of stuff that we have to invest in to make this work. And it still costs money, and you have to charge that somewhere or you're going to lose money on it. So, and by the way, this is where my Facebook group comes in handy, because if you can get it on for a deal, then great, you know? Like you have the choice to pass that deal on to your customers. You could, or you don't have to. But anyway, so when it comes to that, I was saying to do a percentage, but I actually think it's too difficult to figure out a percentage. This is one of the places that I tweaked the formula a little bit, because who knows what percent of a roll of tape I used for a job. Like that's just, I think that's a little bit too difficult. So I have switched that to figure out your total monthly expenses. There is some tracking. You should be tracking all of your expenses, all of your income, like everything should be tracked. And so it might take you a few months of guessing and approximating while you're tracking, and then you get the right amount so that you can like get more and more realistic with every time. But it needs to be your total average monthly expenses, and then go ahead and divide that by your monthly average number of jobs. So if you spend $100 every month on expenses and you have 5 jobs, then each client should be charged $20. I think that is the fair and much more like simpler way to figure that out. Next we have seen and reusable. So this, and you'll see that there are some like categories to this. So this stuff is stuff that like people see and they know it's part of it, like your circle arch, your ring stand, a pipe and drape, drapery, florals, like faux florals, things like that that you can see, but you are going to be able to reuse. So those are a different category, and part of that is because within that category there's like a lot of different ways that they could fall. So I have these broken down from there in A, B, and C. A is something that you use frequently and that you already have paid off. Like you use it so frequently that you have gone ahead and seen your investment be repaid to you. So for me, an example would be my ring stand. I've used that time and again. I've made back my money on it and then some, but I am still using it. I'm still accruing wear and tear on it every time that I use it. So I am still going to charge for it, but I can keep that charge pretty low. So for those sorts of things, a frequent use paid off item, you can charge your customer 10% of the cost of what it was to you. And again, if you get it on sale, you can choose whether you pass that savings on to your customer or you do 10% of the retail price. After that, the B in this category is frequent use, not paid off. So let's say that you don't have a ring stand and you have a request for one that's going to require one, and you're going to invest in one, but you know, like ring stands are still pretty frequently used. Like that's something that it's not like a weird, you know, like there are a lot of things that are maybe one-offs or just kind of trendy and you're not sure you're going to be able to use them again in the future. That's not this. This is stuff that you know you're going to use again. Ring stand, pipe and drape. Those are two like good ones. But it's not paid off yet. So you want to recoup your investment faster. And so you're going to charge 20%. You're buying this for this job, for this person, you're keeping it, but you can't just like give away your money, right? So you're going to charge 20% of the total cost of that item to the customer. And then the last category is something that you're going to use infrequently and that is not paid off yet. And you're buying really just for this setup, this customer's request. So I will use the same example that I used in my initial video because it's still like a really good one. I had a customer that was requesting a like Western theme setup. They wanted a neon back on the backdrop that said howdy. I bought that and I kept it. So, but I don't know when I'm going to use that again, like maybe never, maybe once or twice, but like that's going to be infrequently reused. It's not going to be again and again. So for those type of items, you're going to charge the customer 50% of the total investment. And that makes it so that the customer is getting to use this item for 50% off, but you are also, if you don't reuse the item, you're getting to keep an item and you're basically getting it for 50% off because they split the cost with you, and you get to keep it, and hopefully you do get to reuse it and recoup that investment. Like let's say I just have a run of people that just really want howdy Western theme, giddy up gala like stuff, then I use my howdy again and again. Well, I'm going to start putting that into my frequent use and paid off category, and I'm going to start charging less for it. But until that happens, I'm going to be charging 50% for it. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, the next category is probably the most difficult one, and where I see a lot of people getting into trouble and like being like, what do I do? Like this is all pretty straightforward. Like you can look at the price tag and figure out how much it costs and pass that on. But the next one is labor. How much do you charge for your time? And this is hard, and it varies based on skill, experience, expertise, all of that stuff. It's going to change. Your labor charge, if you're a one-person show, is going to include the fact that you're not just a laborer. You're also a business owner. You're the labor for the inflating, you're the labor for the bookkeeping, you're the labor for the being the secretary. You're all of these people in one. And so these numbers are going to be higher than if you got a job answering phones at the office down the road, because you're more than that. So that is part of, and like it's hard to like accept that as this individual, like I should really be charging that much for my time. But yeah, you should, because you're doing a lot here. And like if you're doing this right, then you need to charge for your time. Even as a beginner, I see a lot of people that say you should only work for materials. In the beginning, like you should just charge the cost of materials. I understand that there are some people that post stuff that's like very DIY, very beginner, and I get that. But even those people, if they are doing something for somebody else because they were asked to, then they did something that somebody else didn't have to do. They took time from their lives, their family, their home, and did a thing for somebody else. And it is not unfair to ask to be paid for that. Maybe you shouldn't ask for much, but you should, your time, no matter who you are or what your skill is worth something. So even as a beginner, you can start at $20 to $30 an hour. Now, if you're doing this like for your own, you're like, you begged a friend that's having their kid's birthday party, like, please let me do your balloons. Okay, well, maybe don't charge for your time because they didn't like hire you. But if you've been hired, charge for your time. Okay, I digress. So that's what I would say for a beginner. Now, also, I'll just add in here, well, no, I won't, I'll come back. For an intermediate, so this is where you're out of that beginner phase. Your stuff isn't looking DIY anymore. Like you are starting to bring some skill to this. You're starting to understand how things work. You're starting to move a little bit faster. And when you get to that level, then you can increase your prices and be around $30 to $65 an hour. So that's what I have here for intermediate. And then for advanced, so these advanced, you can almost charge like whatever you want as advanced, especially when you start getting booked out, you're not available, you're becoming this really like luxury sought after thing. Well, then you can go way up. But let's just like, as you're getting there, going from 65 up to like, I've got 125 here. I mean, that's a lot. And you should be careful with going that high, but you can get that high, again, if you are booked and people want you, like you can charge a premium for being available. Now, a few more notes on labor. First of all, this, for my formula, includes everything that you do for this job, from answering the phone call or answering the first DM or whatever it is, the email, From there, going back and forth about the design with the client, go finding the balloons online. We all know that like half the time the colors that you want are available from this distributor in this size but not that size, and then this one in that size, and then you're kind of having to like find, you know, shop around and all that stuff. Like that takes time, and that matters. So it includes that. For me, I don't have an extra travel fee built into this. Now, I think that is probably something that is going to have to vary by area, because some people charge mileage, but like if you live in like a really tight city, like you don't have to travel many miles to be in the car or whatever for a very long time. So I think that you like, actually, that's why I don't have a mileage charge, because it still comes down to time, right? That's what matters. That's why we like even think about charging for mileage, is because it's how much time you're spending on the delivery. So I would include travel time in the total labor charge. So it's that. It's of course the inflating, the installing, the breaking down, all of that. The only thing about travel that I'll say is if you go and install and you choose to leave and go far away, and it's like 2 hours later, it might not be fair. Again, fair. Think about what is fair and what you would want if you were a client. It might not be fair to charge the client for that entire trip all over again. But if like, especially if you have to come back the next day, or it's going to be many hours or something like that, then that might be fair. Always ask yourself, could I justify this? If this customer asks me point blank, did you charge me for 2 trips? Can you morally justify yourself and be like, well, yeah, like you wanted me to come back the next day. Like I had to take time out of my time, and not like, well, yeah, I wanted to go to Target. Like, can you morally justify it? That if you can, then it's fair. You know, that is the most important thing. And I think that in this, maybe I'm gonna stumble on this, but I think in this industry, there are so many of us, the vast majority of us are people that are hustling and wanting to do something and loving this because it brings joy to people, and it, you know, we love to bring people a smile. And like, I think this industry lends itself to people like us that are going to do the right thing. Like, I already think that you are going to do the right thing, and I don't even think you need this lecture from me, but the reason that I am saying it is because I'm not worried about you being really unfair to your client and being like, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and like run a few errands and charge the mileage to the client. Like, I don't think you're gonna do that, because like this is where you are. Like, you're all like, the fact that you're here is you're already not that type of person. So I don't know. Maybe I'm reading the room wrong. It could be, but that's what I think. So you can adjust that how you want to. I'll leave it at that. There's a lot of flexibility in this. There's a lot of places for you to make it yours. All right, that's enough about that. The last thing I'll say about labor before I move on is, if you go through all of this and you get to the end and the number that you get doesn't make sense for your market, like you're like, you know, whoever down the road is charging way more than that and we do similar work, or way less and we do similar work, then you probably need to adjust your labor charge. If you're doing similar work to somebody around you and it's like way off, you don't want to be undercutting them like crazy. You may want to be the highest. You know, most people like to fall somewhere in the middle. The undercutting is a race to the bottom. Being the highest, you might not get booked. But anyway, if you're way off, look at your labor. You probably have the labor that you need to either adjust it up or down. All right, let's move on. So the next category is going to be your overhead. So this is all the stuff that you spend money on that isn't for a particular setup. So if you have a website and you have to pay a monthly or a yearly fee on your website, your insurance, if you have a van, your car insurance, stuff like that, like all the stuff that you invest money in but isn't accounted for in everything that we've talked about so far, that's going to be your overhead. The best way to do overhead is similar to what we did up here with the unseen and non-reusable, which is to take the total monthly expense, divide it by the average number of jobs that you have, and that will pass an appropriate amount on to each client. I feel like that category is pretty straightforward. One last thing about overhead is, if you have something that you are working toward, let's say you don't have the van yet, or you don't have a storefront, or you don't have the website yet, but you are like, it is your next goal, it is okay to start adding in the cost of that item to your overhead, and that is going to help you get there. Don't add in things that you want like really far in the future, like someday I want to, you know, have a van, or someday I want to have a storefront. Don't add that into your overhead yet. But if you're like, no, I am working, like as soon as I can afford it, I'm getting a website, start putting it in your overhead. Okay, and then the last one, and this is, I think the like best one, the most exciting one, the funnest one, but also in a way like the hardest to really wrap your mind around. But that is your value charge. Oh, I can take this away. That is your value charge. So value is, this is, by the way, and I didn't say this in my last video, value is where your profit lies. If you are doing this just as you want a little side hustle, you want a little extra money, you just want like a second job, basically, you don't have to do a value charge. But if you want to run this like a business, you want it to grow, you want it to get bigger, you have dreams of someday being able to have this business and hire people to do all of this other stuff while you still make money, you need profit, which comes from your value charge. Your value, the way that you justify and figure out what your value charge is your wow. The magic that you bring. It's your unique flair, your style. It's the thing that when people walk in and look at your design, they're like, whoa, that is so cool. Like, oh my gosh, you're so talented. You start hearing that and you start to know that you are bringing the value versus like, thanks for the balloons, you know, like, thanks for doing me the favor of blowing them up so I didn't have to, you know, that's a different thing. But when you start like really delivering something special, then you are bringing value. So you can, as a very new beginner, brand new, you're probably not quite there to adding value. You're not like in a profitable business yet, but you need to get there quickly. And as soon as you start getting your skill, like really leveling up that expertise, that's when you start to add your value charge. And as a beginner, I had this broken down into beginner, intermediate, and advanced, but this doesn't necessarily correlate to how much time you've been doing it, more so about how good you are. Because you could be a beginner and be like doing work that like is beyond somebody who's been at it at 6, 12, whatever months. So when I say beginner, I'm thinking more so in terms of skill level than time spent doing this. Experience does count because there are just a lot of things that like each time you have an experience, you learn something, but I think it's more so about skill. So as a beginner, when you start adding a value charge, you're going to start at 5%. And that is going to yield you a profit margin of like, less than 5%. The profit margin always ends up being a little bit less than the number and the value. But it's little, but you're starting to build a profit. And whenever the more that you add in your special skills, the more like you start to feel, this is a bit of a feel thing, but you start to feel when you're really bringing some value. And as you're getting into that intermediate level, then you can start doing 10 to 15% value. And then the last category is advanced. These are the pros. These are the people that are just wowing, knocking it out of the park. Everything they do is just like, holy cow. That is where you can start adding 20, 30, sometimes even higher percent to your value. The goal is to get to at least 20 or 30% of a value that is going to bring your profit margin. If you're at 30% value, it's going to bring your profit margin into the 20s, which is a really healthy profit margin. So that is where your profit lies, and you're going to do that with your value charge. Now, I know that a lot of what I just said about how to figure out where you lie in this is kind of subjective, and I will just throw a little plug in there that this is another thing that I can help you figure out in the same place that you go for that calculator. Again, if you want all of this just done for you, you can buy the calculator separately, or if you want, I offer like consultations where we talk about pricing, we'll look at your individual work, as well as a session where we can talk about like your designs, and we can look at it together and kind of figure out like, where are you falling? What is your value? Where should you be right now? What area are you in? What's your market? We can go through all of that together and help you figure out exactly where you should be right now in that. So again, if that sounds good to you, I just want to I'm not exactly here to like sell you that really. I just want you to know that like, if this feels confusing to you, I can still help you more. And I'm happy to do it. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, so before I finish up, a couple more thoughts. First of all, I know a lot of people charge by the foot, and this flies in the face of all of that. I've not mentioned anything about charging by the foot, but I don't like to charge by the foot because I find it very limiting. There are some amazing, like beautiful, valuable, magical setups that are an 8-foot garland, if you measured it out, and it's like, really, you're going to charge $25 a foot? You're going to call that a $200 setup? Like, there's so much more to it than just the linear amount of feet of balloons that you are using. And also, I like to add, and I have a whole video about this, you can go look at it. I like to over deliver without overextending. And I'm not going to talk more about that. Go look at the other video, but I want to be able to over deliver without feeling like I am, somehow shorting myself. I also want to be able to look at a setup and be like, oh, that's too much. Like there's too many clusters up here. I want to take it away and have less linear feet and not have my client be like, well, you charged me for 8 feet and there's only 6 here, whatever. Like that's why I personally don't like it. I know it works for a lot of people, probably the majority of people in this industry. And I am not like, that's fine. Like you do you, right? Like good for you, not for me kind of thing. But that is why I don't use the feet. And that's why I do all of this instead, because I feel like that gets me more to like at the heart of what my work should be worth. The other thing that I will add is I do not recommend itemizing your quotes. The calculator that you can, if you end up getting it, or if you end up just like putting this into a list, do not show your clients that list. Every time that you show somebody an itemized list of what you're charging for, the natural response is going to be for them to look for things that they can cut. Do I really need this? Do I really need that? She's showing me basically like how I can like get more for less. So let's figure out how we can do that. And that's not really what we want. The other thing is like you're giving your customer, your potential customer, an opportunity to nitpick, give you a hard time. I mean, people will give you a hard time anyway about your prices, but it gives them something to like really pick out, like, oh, you really think this, you really think that. And like, especially this is another reason that I don't like doing a delivery charge, specifically a delivery charge, because people get like upset about delivery charges. They're like, what do you mean a delivery charge? Like, of course you're going to deliver it. Again, I know a lot of people use it and that is fine, but I have found that when I like add in like plus this for delivery, people are like, ugh, like, I don't think that people receive that very well. I personally think, and I've said this before, that people would rather hear this setup in total is going to be $500 rather than this is going to be $300 plus $100 for delivery and $100 for teardown. When you do that, it's just kind of like this, like, oh, she's like nickel and diming me kind of thing. Versus if you say it's a $500 and that includes your customized work, your, the 3 colors or whatever colors of balloons, all of the delivery, the setup, and the teardown, all of that is included in that number. Then people are more likely to be like, okay, like she's not giving me any surprise charges. There's no hidden fees. She's not nickel and diming me kind of thing. People are a lot more receptive to that. So that is also the reason why I don't itemize things out. Now, if people ask me for like, I've never had this happen, but if somebody were to ask me for like, where do these prices come from? I might give it to them in like clumps, like, well, here's my cost of goods, here's my cost of labor, here's my like amount of time that I anticipate putting into it, because that is something that people have no understanding of, including some balloon artists, especially new balloon artists, have no understanding of how much time this actually takes when you go through all of that stuff. So if anybody were to ask, like, it's okay to be like, well, this is probably going to take me about 6 hours, Something quickly about labor is if you are brand new, it is going to take you longer to do things. Like something that could take me today 2 hours to set up, back in the beginning would have taken me 6, like easily. And that is part of the reason why beginners should charge less for their time, because clients shouldn't be penalized for the fact that it just takes you more time, but you also shouldn't be rushed if you can help it, because you want to take the time that you need in order to get better, rather than rushing through things and never actually improving. So to balance that out, one of the things that we do is charge less as a beginner, but also if you can also, like, if it's like a huge difference, like you're like, this is taking me like 10 hours, let's say, you can ask yourself like, well, what would somebody more experienced than me take? Maybe it's like 3 or 4 hours. Then you can kind of like cut it, like take it in between and say like, well, I'm going to charge for 6 hours at my rate because it's going to take me 10 and took them 3 kind of thing. That's a pretty wide range, but you get the idea. Like there is flexibility in here to make this fair. If you get to your final number and it's like, that doesn't make sense, then maybe you need to look back at your labor and the hours and make sure that like those are correct and that you're charging that appropriately for what is expected and again, fair. It's all about being fair. I hope that made sense. I feel like I explained that better in my last video, to be honest. So feel free to go check that out, or maybe I can try again another time if it didn't make sense. All right, that's all of my notes. That is my formula. Again, if you just want this done for you, go check out the calculator. Hopefully this is helpful for you. You can start using this right away if you need something. If you need some help with charging your very next job or quoting your very next job, then hopefully this helps. If you have questions, please let me know. Your questions and your feedback on my first video of this is what has I'm gonna take a moment here and get a little personal. It has literally changed my life. Like the comments, feedback, support, positive, criticism, constructive, all of that was left on my first video about this formula has driven such a huge shift for me in my focus and what I want to give and what I want to help with, and like being able to actually do that. It's given me purpose and direction. So when I say I'm so thankful and grateful to you guys, like I really mean it. Like you guys are changing my life. Like I really hope that I'm helping you change your business with this, but you are changing my life. So thank you. And please don't stop. Please keep doing it by giving me some comments. Tell me what you like about this. Tell me what's still not clear, what you think should change. Whatever, we are flexible. This is real life. Like the end is never the end, right? So if there's something we need to tweak, let's tweak it. Let me know. Give me your thoughts. So okay, I'll shut up about that. But I really mean it when I say thank you. Okay, that's all. I hope this helped. Happy ballooning.